Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the On to the Next Thing podcast. My name is Michael.
And I'm Callie.
And this is the first episode of our podcast where we talk about a variety of topics ranging from current events to media and entertainment to our current gripes of the week. So this episode is kind of a test episode, so we're mostly going to discuss how this podcast works, a little bit of background about ourselves, and how the show is going to progress moving forward. And then we can get into a couple of recaps and some topics for this particular week. So do you want to start, or should I start with the background? Okay. Well, so I'm an environmental scientist. I have a bachelor's degree. I'm a few years out of graduation. Okay, what do you want me to say?
So we're both early career professionals. I'm a consultant.
Early career professional.
Early career professional, as Michael had mentioned, and we're really excited to get this pod going.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of this podcast, what I'm hoping for it to be is to be sort of a variety show. I'd like it to be somewhat educational, but also entertaining, a little mixture of serious and light and interesting. So hopefully each episode, I guess, what we're planning to do each episode, I'll say hopefully.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with hoping.
Yeah, nothing wrong with hope. Who the fuck is calling me?
Is it Ben?
No, that's spam.
Damn.
All right, keep it going. Bye, spam. So the way this is going to go is ideally every episode we're going to talk a little bit about life in the postgraduate world and topics related to career building and building a life as a young adult in the United States in the 21st century. Call this right now. It's the Q2 of the 21st century. What? The microphone can pick up your lips going.
I just want to capture the ASMR sounds I'm trying to...
Do you like that? Comment if you like that.
There's someone parked across the street looking into it.
Yeah, our studio. They're looking into the studio.
There's a lot of cutting, but that's okay.
They're looking into the studio. They're eating
the
dogs. They're eating the cats. All right, back to it. So, yeah, we're going to discuss things related to career building and life outside of college. From the perspective of people who have been working at it for a little while and hopefully have some knowledge to pass on to others. We also want to find interesting stories to tell about our country and our world and people.
As well as media we find really entertaining and exciting.
Yeah, and impactful. I think that's important as well. Although it's, of course, not everything can be serious all the time. So sometimes it's just going to be stuff that we find fun or funny. And we hope that you will too. Okay, so what else do we have on the docket here? We have the meat section. Meat. That's our little, that's the header that we have on our outline here. So I guess we could go into, all right, we talked a little bit about us. So before we go into our current events segment that we want to do, the current events segment will be a recap. Oh, god damn. No! A recap of the previous. That's
getting cut too.
No, that's staying in. Recap.
The recap.
Yeah. Oh, that's what we can call it.
The recap?
We can call it the recap. God,
that could be the pod.
The recap. Yeah.
Or the section.
Oh, but that is
stupid.
Name sucks. Sounds like a name made by a baby.
Okay.
All right, maybe not. We'll stick with the working title for now. But we'll keep recap on the back burner. But so every week we'll do a recap of kind of stories that we find important or interesting. A little bit of politics, a little bit of science and entertainment, maybe even a little bit of drama.
Ooh, drama.
Drama. That's what wow. I don't know if I want to do the snapping thing.
Yeah, we can cut that.
No, that's okay. That stays in. It's gonna be a little bit of everything. But before, in case you're listening in another time or another place, We'll give you a little context of our time. What is this, March 1st, 2025?
Yep, it
so
is.
What's happened so far in 2025?
Quite a bit. So currently, President Donald Trump is in office, signing a lot of executive actions and orders, changing the system along with Elon Musk, a foreign adversary that has infiltrated our government.
That's
just
more
kidding.
an adversary.
I'm
He's
kidding,
a
guys.
allegedly,
I'm kidding.
alleged adversary of the United States.
Guys, I jest. So it's been a very interesting and tumultuous
An African American entrepreneur.
Of course, we have to be clear about who he is. But also, there's been a lot of changes to policy in the United States. There's a lot of tension right now. And also a lot of interesting art being put out into the world, whether it be shows that are coming out like White Lotus. If this is still, hopefully the guy doesn't have a moment later down the line, who knows, let me just reel it back. But a lot of great things along with a lot of scary stuff, so it's been an interesting time so far.
Yeah, it's been a cold winter. That's another thing. It's been a cold winter across the United States, even kind of unusually cold for how winters go.
Yep.
Yeah, getting snow and stuff, it's pretty cool. Anything else? Oh, planes falling out of the sky.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah. But again, not to overwhelm people or stress them out.
This is just to give a feel.
Context
of
the feel.
Yeah,
this is like anthropological studies, in case they're wondering what's going on and what people are actually thinking about, like, the Dust Bowl records that they have in like the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
But essentially, there's been a lot of changes, a lot of shifts, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. But also a lot of positive.
I think our own exhibit in the Smithsonian is a doable goal to work towards.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just put a little put a little Beats speaker behind glass and have it playing.
A JBL.
Yeah, and have
playing again by Fetty Wap, which is a reference that is very a meme at the time. Maybe it won't be relevant. Yeah.
Could you explain who Fetty Wap is?
No.
Okay.
He's in jail.
Moving on.
He's incarcerated, excuse me.
Okay. All right, so we'll start off with some current events. So recently, Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky got into a bit of a spat on camera in the Oval Office. And things not looking so great for Ukraine.
Yeah. It seemed like from the reports that there were a lot of shouting that occurred. Vice President J.D. Vance was no help, as we've realized he will be for the rest of
little gingerbread man came in and started talking about being grateful. It kind of reminds me of how honestly, like any old person who wants to ask you to be grateful for something, like it just sounds like you should be grateful.
Yeah.
And it's
take
and
the
honestly,
crumbs. Take the breadcrumbs we're giving you and be happy.
It struck
Shut up and dribble.
It struck such a nerve for me, because it's like I've 100% been told or like heard people just saying like, you need to be more grateful. This is really disrespectful of you.
Yeah. And I think too that it really highlights how the United States is moving away from its globalist view and really focusing in on a nationalist view, and a bit of a turn that, if we're still thinking that we're in this prolonged Cold War situation with Russia, we're really buddying up with them, and I think this may be the end of it in a sense, or whatever illusion it may be, because of the closeness to Russia and the policy expectations that President Trump has from Zelensky, and this supposed treaty that was meant to be signed but ended up not being signed. And so Zelensky is now headed back to Europe, and it is reported that he had stopped in London. And so I'm curious to see what the European Union has to say, and other European allies have to say about the situation. But it's definitely not a good look for the United States to have our leader berate the press, yell at
another leader
who
was supposed to be our ally.
It's really
a few months ago.
Not a good look.
Yeah,
not a good show of strength.
It was kind of like watching like if anyone's ever had their parents fight in the middle of a restaurant, it kind of felt like that.
Yeah,
It's just like,
really,
ooh, that's not
really
supposed to be.
embarrassing.
That's not supposed to be a conflict that's out in the public. You're supposed to hash that out behind the scenes, and then you shake hands on camera and go, well, it's very great to be working with you, Mr. President, and then you move on, and then the press conference ended. Instead, it got filmed where it just be grateful. Be grateful that we're that we're asking you for reparations for us, even though we weren't in the war. And yeah.
So we'll see how that shakes down with European allies in Canada.
Yeah. Not a great situation if you're Ukrainian, but yeah, hopefully things will pan out. Hope.
All
right. So
let's go to the next topic.
Yes. So next topic we want to discuss, I think is going to be pretty relevant for anyone who's close to graduating or recently graduated. The Department of Education has recently decided, or rather confirmed, that they're going to be taking away certain low-interest student loan repayment plans. These include a couple different income-based repayment plans that were touted for their, basically low monthly payments and essentially pretty easy forgiveness process. The one that was the most, that had the lowest rate, rather, you could be forgiven if you made payments over the course of 10 years, even at the minimum payment. And so, yeah, that is the potential.
I believe that too was ushered in by former President Biden as well. That student loan forgiveness plan, that a lot of the student loan forgiveness plans that are being rolled back were instituted by the Biden presidency, essentially. So it's really, again, reshuffling of, not necessarily reshuffling, but just removing any student loan forgiveness progress, I guess you can say. I know a lot of people were disappointed with the policies that President Biden had, sold during his campaign.
And then even the good ones he got through got stopped up in the courts.
So this is, it's one thing to take something away, but then what are you going to replace it? Is there going to be a shift? What change is to come? And I think that's pretty much the sentiment of politics right now. It's kind of unpredictable, but also predictable with, Project 2025 being existent. So people can see some of the policy changes aligning with what was discussed in that document, but at the same time, things are up in the air.
Yeah, you start to see kind of a pattern, though, of various safety nets being taken away. Even something that's not necessarily a safety net, but something that would just kind of make things easier for people trying to pay back debt. And now it's going to be just a little bit harder for those who maybe don't have steady jobs and steady income right now to begin paying back their student loans. So moving on from there, one last political piece. So recently, there's been a class action lawsuit launched against the department. Launched? What do you prefer?
I like launched
against the Department of Government Efficiency, aka DOGE, which it's going to be excruciating that I have to say,
and
DOGE
embarrassing, and I'm sure that many esteemed reporters have.
It's called secondhand embarrassment.
Yes, and I feel it for them all day.
And it's all the rage now.
Yeah.
So a couple different groups were filing a class action lawsuit against the Department of Government Efficiency because of its attempt to acquire taxpayer data as part of its supposed audit of the IRS. And so for now, that's kind of freezing up the DOGE's ability to go through different people's tax information. And so hopefully that's one of those things, right, where you kind of hope the class action lawsuit wins. It's a pretty justifiable one. And, hopefully if you pay taxes, not saying all our listeners pay taxes, but if you do pay taxes, hopefully this is a thing where you don't need to have your stuff poured through by whatever people are being hired at DOGE.
Yeah,
right now.
And I think, too, there's been a lot of conversation or speculation about why Elon Musk is in our government so he's so intertwined into our government currently. And I will say that although he's not an elected official or someone who was voted in by our Congress, essentially, there are roles and positions that the president can just have someone step into and he can assign. I know that President Biden had not border czars. The border czar was former Vice President Kamala Harris, but different types of heads can be instituted and initiated by the president, and they can pick who they want in that role without there needing to be a vote from Congress. So I believe that he's within that role where he doesn't need to be voted in. So there's a lot of issues with lack of trust, and I'm sure that this is going to add to the unity of the United States. Just kidding. Absolutely not. I think this is another point of which there is a lot of division. Yeah. But on to more interesting science news, not to get too bogged down into politics.
Yeah. On to science news. So if you haven't seen it already, there's going to be a rare planetary...
There was a rare planetary. It was yesterday.
Yeah, okay, fine. Whatever. It was
yesterday evening.
But there's still,
you can see some of them.
The planets haven't run away.
They haven't. So they're still there.
Yeah,
if you think, if you imagine.
I can't. Okay, they can't have moved that far, right?
No,
I'm not very good at planetary
what's interesting,
science.
And you wonder, right? Like, what makes this so special is that they're all going to be quote unquote visible. Some of these planets you definitely need a telescope to be able to view. I believe those outer planets, the larger planets like Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, you're going to need a telescope to see those. Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury, they're all visible, and frankly, we're on Earth, so just look around. You can find that planet pretty quickly. However, what's interesting about this alignment is that it's very rare. It doesn't happen. It doesn't occur. If you're into astrology, that's fine. It's definitely a special time. It's in Pisces, if you're wondering. But part of what makes this interesting is that Saturn, I believe, and Mercury are going to fall out of the scope of view.
I thought you were going to say they're going to fall out of the sky.
They're going to fall out of...
Saturn and Mercury are going to fall out of the sky. Fuck out of the sky today. Sorry you missed it. No.
Yep. So, they're going to fall out of... And we can fact check this. It may not be those two planets, but essentially 2 of those 8 planets that we're going to be able to see. 8 as in Earth as well. And I know I'm rambling on at this point, but they're going to fall out of view. So it's really rare, and they've been aligning since the top of the year. So it's really cool to have lived through that. It's like the solar eclipse that happened last year. It's really great to see these feats of science in real life and be able to be a part of something globally. So it's really great. It's really great.
Yeah. So unless it's a bit overcast in your area,
like it was for us
for the past 3 days when we were supposed to see this beautiful planetary parade, get out there, get a telescope if you got one, and
start looking.
Enjoy the celestial bodies.
Yeah.
So on to Michael's bird news. I hope that could become a reoccurring segment
because cool. I love Michael's birds.
I like birds. Callista likes birds, sort of. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, birds. Yep. We're good on birds.
Callista, as in my full name.
I find your full name, Callista.
Yep.
Put that in the census. So in bird news, recently there has been a collaboration between Japanese and Bhutanese researchers to rehabilitate the populations of the nearly extinct white-bellied herons.
Ooh.
And so these birds, they are native to East Asia, and part of the reason why they've become so endangered is that they require large undisturbed habitats. And if you follow anything about ecology or ecological collapses, the first species that are threatened by human development are the ones that need a lot of space that's not fragmented. And the fragmentation is key because sometimes you can leave large swaths of undeveloped land, but then if it's cut through with roads or bridges or industrial buildings, then that can really disrupt more fragile species like the white-bellied herons. So in order to rehabilitate them, Japan has set up a breeding program for them, and they've managed to have some success. But they've ran into a few issues where some of the young birds had deformities in the legs. But that's partially due to the low population having low genetic diversity. And so when that happens, you can get more defects in the population as you go. But they're still managing to rear some healthy chicks and have begun the process of rehabilitating them back in their own habitat.
That's exciting. And I think, too, this could be a blueprint for many other species that are endangered or previously been lost. And hopefully there's a greater push for conservation and really appreciating these species that contribute so much to our environment.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Quick fact check on that. So right now they're still in the breeding process and figuring out how to
work out the kinks.
Work out the kinks, let's say, as
in DNA.
Work the deformed birds out of their system. They're hoping that within 5 to 10 years, when the captive population rises to about 30 individuals.
Yeah, better than the white rhino one, I'll say that.
Yeah, that, you know what? I will say, better than the right rhino. Oh God. When it hits around 30 individuals, they're hoping to release a few into the wild, which will hopefully bring a couple strong individuals into the environment to add to the genetic diversity of the population. But yeah, I'd say better than white rhino.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, on to some international news. Apparently a subsea fiber optic cable, one of the cables that delivers internet service to various countries underneath the surface of the ocean, has been cut between Nova Scotia and what is that mean? I'm sorry.
Wonder what that means.
NL. So I guess it must be Newfoundland.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, so in Canada, and so they found that it was deliberately cut, apparently for the second time. And,
that is concerning.
And they do not know who cut through the cable or why.
I'm gonna say, killer whales. They're up to no good, as per usual.
Absolutely, those whales are smart. And I'd say the killer whales, they'll use bigger whales to do their bidding. They're probably
It's a kraken.
If you've ever seen, once again, going a little bit too deep into my animal lore here, but if you've ever seen a pod of killer whales funnel a pod of blue whales into a certain area while hunting, you know that they could 100% weaponize a blue whale or similarly sized whale to run straight through a fiber optic cable.
But they don't go that deep. That's the thing. Whales actually don't go that deep.
And they also don't know how to use bolt cutters.
So it's a mystery. It's a mystery, but it's interesting, to say the least.
Yes. A slightly frightening mystery because,
absolutely.
You cut the internet. That's allegedly bad. So...
that's why we have radio.
Hopefully, yeah.
Exactly, radio.
As soon as shortwave radio comes back, this podcast, to the moon. To the moon. Just
nice sound effect.
Yeah.
Nice sound effect.
So, entertainment news. If there's any James Bond fans, sorry. Initially, sorry already that you're a James Bond fan. 2, that Amazon and MGM Studios, I guess that's one thing now, Amazon MGM Studios.
Yep.
Amazon
did acquire MGM Studios.
Ooh. Spent $1 billion to get full creative control over the James Bond franchise. Now, something I didn't know is that the James Bond movie franchise had been basically written and produced by the same... there's a family, and then there's like another writer. So there's pairs of writers for the past 50 years of James Bond movies, going back to the first ones.
Oh wow!
Sean Connery and the other guy and the one now and Rami Malek.
Oh, cool.
But now I guess the daughter of one of the original producers has decided that she and her other creative partner are going to sell it to Amazon MGM Studios. And to be fair, if I had something like James Bond that I could sell, $1 billion, that's not a bad price. That tells you that Amazon really wants James Bond.
The IP.
Yeah, they at least want the IP, because I'm sure they could start...
control.
Yeah, but that means they could change well, the characters, but they could probably change the cast around if they want to.
I'm assuming there's going to
be
be some product placement.
Yeah,
Yep.
I assume maybe. Yeah, that's
Amazon Health
that'll be
and
fun.
James Bond.
Maybe turning it into a
Show?
series rather.
Yeah.
That could be interesting.
I feel like it's already at that level, however, with the amount of movies that exist and how long this person's been alive. I don't know a lot about the James Bond lore, but he's been alive for a long time. Right? If it's the same James Bond individual playing.
Well, it's kind of like
what I mean?
It's kind of like it gets rebooted every generation.
So
like you had like the first guy whose name I don't remember.
It's like Robins
you
basically
had,
to Batman, because
yeah,
it's like there's multiple different Robins.
Yeah, except it's kind of just like, oh, now the James Bond universe is set in the Cold War. Oh, now it's set in the 90s. Oh, now it's set now in the Information Age. So who's the most recent guy? I keep forgetting his name.
I don't know.
Oh my god, I'm such an embarrassing hack when it comes to movie
I'm
trivia.
usually better. It's the guy from Glass Onion. Like,
yeah, it's the guy.
That's the reference I have. Let me.
Yeah, he's a British guy. You did a bad or really good, depending on your perspective, Southern accent in Glass Onion.
I thought it was fantastic.
Knives Out. And he was like sexiest man alive one year. I keep forgetting his name. That's so embarrassing.
I'm still looking, guys. I'm really sorry.
Please research, please.
I'm trying.
Please.
I'm trying.
Not Sean Connery. Why
it's
is
not
that the
Sean
only
Connery.
one I can think of?
Man, this is tough. Guys, it's nowhere to be found. Wow.
Just look at the cast.
Michael, it doesn't pull it up. I know it's shocking, but they don't pull it up. Okay.
James Bond. Who's Ryan Murphy? That's the director.
It's not Ryan Murphy. LOL.
James Bond. James Bond. Film character.
Daniel Craig. Oh, he's great.
High five.
He's really good.
Nailed
he's a great actor.
Yeah, great actor. He's the most recent Bond, but I think they are going to change him.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're gonna.
They're gonna change. They're gonna change the casting for James Bond.
They're gonna change it. Yep.
We're coming up on about 20 years of Daniel Craig Bond.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, something like that. It was Casino Royale.
That's good money.
Or
wow.
It was the one before Casino Royale was his first one, and that was in like 2003 or something like that. So that's like 20 years of Daniel Craig. And I mean, listen, he's still big beautiful Daniel Craig, but
he's fantastic. I think he's such a great But
he's kind of aging out of it a little bit. James Bond needs to take his pension and then allow
another person. Dabbled, and it's interesting the conversations.
Timothy Chalamet.
He's sweeping up these roles left and right.
He's sweeping up. He can be Bob Dylan.
He can be Willy Wonka. Young Willy Wonka.
He can be.
They've talked about other people like Idris Elba, really well-known legacy actors stepping into the role.
Idris Elba's already old.
Yeah, but he's also fantastic, and I think it's like we're trying to not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but it's like how do we tell new stories with the same format and framework, and like how do we put in characters, different perspectives.
Who's the guy from Creed? Michael
B. Jackson.
Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jackson.
Sorry, gang. Creed is a spin-off of Rocky, right?
Yes.
Yes, Creed is a Rocky spin-off. Yeah. So much world building within these like one-off ideas, and
that
then it's like
they really
Creed.
Don't need.
I think it's cool.
Or
Creed
maybe
is well
they
loved.
do need. If any studio wants to sponsor this show, maybe these IPs really do need more fleshing out, and maybe we can.
We can get into that. That's a whole nother topic when it comes to like studios, IP.
Anyway, all I wanted to say. Sorry.
I don't think Michael B. Jordan, you're fantastic. Love your rum. I think that. I
just want to see mega buff James Bond, just super roided out Michael B. Jordan. James
I would
Bond.
love to see.
He comes in, buttons are popping off the suit, hits a guy in the face. Did it, boom, bit it, boom, bit it.
I think that's enough news for today.
Oh, no, sports news. I get to do
Okay,
sports
you
news.
got this.
Canada wins. Oh, Canada. They win the championship that I learned doesn't actually really matter.
Exposition game.
Exploitation. Yeah, exposition game.
It's an exposition game with 4 nations.
Exhibition.
What did I
game.
say?
You said exposition game. It's
Oh,
like
we
it's
can-
Ren
We're
essays on the
writing
ice.
essays on the ice. It's an ice skating.
Anyway,
No, it's the
Canada won in the tournament. It's an exhibition game. So it's kind of like the All-Stars, so the best players from each
nation.
from each nation.
Sweden, Finland, the United States, and Canada face off. Four-nation
Apparently-
face-off championship.
Apparently, all those Scandinavians got knocked out quick.
Yeah.
So let's just say America's won this round, even though it was really Canada won the whole thing. But we'll say North America beat the Scandinavians. I call that a victory, no matter who you're rooting for. Okay, so now that we're done with the news,
Let's get into
let's get into our
main
lifestyle topic.
Yeah.
We'll call them that for now.
Yeah,
Lifestyle,
we're still workshopping
life
some of
hacks.
these names,
Yeah, it's gonna take some time,
couple iterations.
and you're gonna hear all of it because I have no editing skills and will cut nothing.
Just kidding.
Guaranteed.
Raw edit.
So just as kind of as a starter topic, test episode, let's talk about something that anyone who's coming out of college, or probably people who are in college now,
college, coming out of,
and that's job hunting.
Job hunting. What is it? What does it look like? You may have heard some of it or about it
You may have
during
heard that
undergrad.
it's something to do with looking for jobs.
Yes, and your college counselor, your advisors may have mentioned these while you've had interviews with them or conversations, I guess you can say. So we're going to get a little bit into that and discuss what it was like for us, from undergrad into being early career professionals, and maybe some tips and tricks. We're not, resume experts or HR experts on how to get hired, but
Although
we
we can become that for the purpose of this show in later episodes.
Well, I'm okay with not becoming an expert in that sense, so it's whatever to me. But we can impart some wisdom and some hope, at least, with what that looks like, what to do, and we can also touch upon this again in later episodes.
Yeah. You want to go first? Or
Sure, I can talk about my journey. I know that for me, I've had a lot of internships in the past, and this is not just me reading my resume, by the way, so it'll be more abstract than that. But, typically before getting that big first role right out of undergrad, you'll go through internships during freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, and also senior year that may lead into a role. I was able to secure a job, while in my final year of college, and I found the process to be not necessarily easy, because that's an understatement. Getting a job can be easy or hard depending on who it is. But based on the experiences that I've had, they informed my ability to then get a job based on the tasks that I had done, as well as the preparedness I had for interviewing and what I had perspective-wise on hiring cycles and things of that nature. So it was great to have walked out of undergrad with a job, but that's not always the case. Michael?
No. Well, oh, come on.
I'm not trying to say that, I'm not trying
Feels
to
like a bit of a
shit
jab.
on you, I guess you could say.
Yeah, feels like a bit of a hateful, vindictive jab towards me.
Not everyone can be me.
In my beautiful industry of environmental science. Coming out of college, I was a little bit unsure of whether I wanted to go straight into grad school or straight into the workforce, and so time and events chose for me, and so I was left to try and find a job. Luckily, in my final semester, I was looking around for different internships since I knew that the graduate window had kind of closed for a bit, and so eventually, when I started out as a technician in a technician role. And so the thing about technician roles is that, especially in the environmental industry, generally pretty low paying, surprisingly high competition, since they really do want you, roles like that, they really do want you to have experience. And so I guess probably like Callie, let's just...
Callie.
We'll go with Callie. What Callie said, whatever your name is. we and a very important thing is to have some prior experiences, whether that's through internships. College, of course, is a great time to do that because
labs also
ideally
qualifies
you're already
experience.
having everything being paid for through either loans or your parents or your
Working.
private fortune like I had back in the day before I lost it all. But yeah, since things
To
are
the wizard.
things are kind of already being paid for, it's fine to be working for free, and so that's
Another conversation, but
fine in quotes. But like the point is that would be the
that
time when you're
qualifies
expected
as
to work for
experience.
free is
Yes.
when you should be trying to look for those internships, even if it's in something that you don't necessarily want to do as a job in the future. It's always good to have that. At least the idea that you're a hard worker and that you have some experience and that you had a goal in mind when looking for past internships goes a long way in job interviews and on your resume.
Yeah, and I think too, when it comes to job hunting, there's a lot of misconceptions for certain roles and expectations that luckily, thanks to modern technology and the internet, you could just search that up. And I think it's always best to understand the paths to specific job roles, like what types of qualifications do I actually need to fulfill this role, but also know that like this is your first full-time job, probably your first big corporate role or whatever it may be. So they have an understanding and perspective that you're going to have a learning curve. So there's things that you can learn because you're very malleable right out of undergrad and even, master's programs as well. So it doesn't hurt to research the company you're hoping to work for or research more into the role. So that way you have an understanding of the company you may want to work for, their values, their expectations, as well as any type of potential learning expectations that you will have in a specific role and the career progression that a role may offer you initially. For example, for me as a consultant, I understood that there was an order of progression within consulting firms. So typically you start out at like the entry level rung, you move up and up and up from, entry level, associate, senior, manager, and then you kind of get to the associate partner, partner level, VP. And, each firm has their own path, and I'm not, this isn't just about a hierarchy, I guess. Yep, thanks, Michael. Each firm has their own hierarchy, and in companies, they'll kind of inform you of what that looks like as well. So it's good to have a perspective of if I stay in this role, what can happen, and also knowing transferable stuff. That's kind of for the after the fact. But when it comes to job hunting, definitely start with your alumni, people who went to your school, and getting that insight of who from my school went where. That's not a determinate fact. So if no one, at your institution is in a role that you want or at a company that you want to be at, that's not determinant. So just get a perspective of who's out there and start asking questions and, asking for favors, interviews, coffee chats with these alumni.
Yeah. Networking.
Yeah. Networking. Essentially. Yeah.
Networking, of course, very key. Beyond the networking, and especially if you're bad at networking, like I used to be, it's very helpful to know where to look and what resources to use other than your peers when looking for jobs. There's a lot of job websites out there. The big ones, some of the big ones are surprisingly good. Not a sponsored, but Indeed has surprisingly good systems for finding jobs that are related to what you like.
LinkedIn as well.
LinkedIn is also quite good, though they will send a lot of recruiters and bots to
There's also internal alumni and college-based job boards that exist. I forgot what our school...
College job fairs.
Yep, that too. That also works. I know that in today's world...
Of course.
Yeah, it's also very saturated. I've seen like TikToks of it being like super saturated where everyone... And I understand because it's super competitive nowadays. But also like... That's where reaching out to alumni can get you that referral that may make the difference. So it's it's interesting and it's constantly evolving. But I think what's really important to remember is that job hunting is very much a learning curve, but it doesn't determine your value as an individual. Don't assign the job you get with your value as a human being or the lack thereof, because you're fresh into the new world, and so really just take time to appreciate the peace and lack of chaos that comes with adulthood. Even though I know that like we're in that weird space of like, between zone essentially.
It can be frightening. Sometimes you end up in a role that you don't find to be sustainable for yourself. But that's where it's once again it's good to have some kind of network. It can help. If you're in college, talking to professors was a
Professors
big one
are great
for
too
me.
for research, especially.
Especially
PhD
research
programs.
Things. A lot of them will tell you if you're kind of in let's say the softer STEM of say biology and environmental science, they do tend to lean towards graduate school. And that can be a good option, but in the case that you are simply trying to look for work, they can be a valuable resource. Online job boards can be a valuable resource, and then of course big websites, Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor,
things like that.
GoDaddy, is that one?
I don't know if that's for, I think, search engines. That's for your website domain.
Ooh.
Editing Strike that out. Editing that one out. Yes, sir.
GoDaddy. Monster.
That was that one's not existent either. They don't use that anymore.
Go Monster.
Yeah, go Mon. But there's also a lot of niche ones that aren't as well publicized that will like advertise on LinkedIn. So it's good to be active, but again, like don't make it. We understand the struggle. Don't get too disheartened. Your value as a human being isn't assigned to the job you have, and it's not assigned to any of those things. So just take it with a grain of salt and keep going until only takes one yes. So a million no's and one yes is still a yes.
Yeah. Later on in other episodes, we can get more into tactics for job interviews and for resumes. But yeah, in general, for job hunting, the key is partly that it's a numbers game, but having a network and having
a good foundation always helps.
Yes, having a good foundation always helps. And having some type of big key work experience.
Yeah, that always helps.
Yeah, because that makes you look better to prospective employers, and also gives you an idea of both what work can be like and what they look for when they're hiring.
And to interject, one thing I also forgot to mention, and I think we didn't touch upon, is that some job roles will require entry-level job roles at certain companies will require a GPA minimum. So keep that in mind. If you don't meet the minimum, they kind of screen for that. So it's usually around 3, 3.4, 3.5. So as long as you can meet that minimum, you'll get the ability to be screened for the role. But if you don't, then you won't get the opportunity. So it's really important to keep that in mind that some jobs, not all, some have this minimum.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta keep in mind that there are definitely benchmarks for whatever. Sometimes smaller companies, some companies still use humans to pour through resumes and applications.
But rarely. Right now with the volume,
AI boom.
And the volume. It's also the volume, I think, more importantly, because there's so many jobs.
Sometimes
so many job applications.
Pay attention to the hard qualifiers like GPA, work experience, certain skills, because if you don't have those listed in your application, then it's just going to take one robot to go discarded.
Yeah.
So once again, you gotta tailor yourself for the job that you're looking for at a particular time. All right, that's it. I'd say that's a good starter.
Yeah, that's a good starter.
All right. So next,
let's move on to things that we're loving in the media. We don't have a name for this segment either, but we can just call it like our favorite things of the week.
Yeah, it's in this segment we would like to talk about different art forms, content, and media that we've been finding interesting and that we've been consuming in the past week, and so that we may pass on some recommendations to you. So one thing that we've actually both been watching recently is, sorry, my eyes hurt. My bad. Dry eyes.
You need to drink more water.
Yeah.
Warm water.
Oh, actually, let's start. Let's get a little literary. You can start with.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I can start with a book that I've been reading recently. Little bit old. It's called Foundation and Empire. It's a science fiction novel in the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. Yeah, Asimov is known as kind of one of the founding fathers of modern science fiction. A lot of the things that he wrote were kind of were foundational, no pun intended, to a lot of hard science fiction in later decades in the 20th century. And so the basic premise of Foundation is that tens of thousands of years in the future, humanity has an empire that spans the galaxy, but it's fracturing, in decline. And in response to this, an innovative scientist decides to attempt to set up a foundation, or rather two foundations, to attempt to harbor the knowledge of the zenith of humanity, so that when the Dark Age comes, these foundations can be used as a base or a foundation once again to rebuild the empire and restore humanity's civilization after a shorter time than what was otherwise calculated by this scientist. And I'm not going to get too deep into spoilers or anything, but it is a very interesting series, especially if you're into kind of more less fanciful, but more like kind of like hard, like political and technology based science fiction. As a very much older science fiction book, I think it's kind of fascinating to see what creators or authors in the 1950s believed to be the dominant technology and the dominant culture of the future. This is especially interesting in the case of Asimov, because he, throughout the book, you see kind of like similar 1950s like attitudes, mannerisms, and even some technology still found 10,000 employment 10,000 years in the future. For example, secretaries.
Oh my.
Unfortunately, it was before the time when computers and long before the idea of everyone having personal computers. And so everyone's still there are ways of transmitting information through science fiction-y hypersonic communication methods, which are pretty innovative for the time. But yet people still print out messages on paper. There are still secretaries and operators for these communication systems, and additionally, those happen to be the only characters in the book who are women.
Oh wow!
All of the scientists, soldiers, political leaders are all men. And there is no woman with a major role in the plot until about halfway through the second book, and so it's very much a piece of literature of its time, but it's still interesting to see, what a vision of the future is like back then. A lot of nuclear power. Is nuclear huge? Everyone thought that nuclear was the future, and it still kind of is, but we've obviously branched off energy-wise, but. To Asimov, the nuclear was the future. Everything is going to be powered through strange and nebulous nuclear technology, and it was going to be used to dispose of our paper waste. People toss notes into nuclear disposal units. It's just turned into fine atoms.
It's always interesting to see and imagine, like, have that retrospective view of what people thought the future would look like and have that documented. Some of it kind of, as you described, the internet aspect of technology that this author imagined would exist in the future, at least in this dystopian sci-fi novel. I think it's really interesting to see how some of it came true, some of it is super far-fetched and like not realistic. But would you recommend it? Would you recommend this read?
I would recommend it. As long as you're not too strong of an adherent to the Bechdel test, which is, the test in a book where I believe it's if two female characters can talk about something, can have a conversation and not have it be related to a male character, then it passes the Bechdel test. These books do not.
Okay,
Women do eventually start having speaking roles in
Wow.
the, I believe it's second volume, but fourth book of the series.
Oh, wow.
There's a relatively strong female character, especially for the time. But for the most part, it's a lot of very dry-witted men discussing military and societal currents and like basically the large movements and behavior of large groups of people that shift and alter the history of humanity. And yeah, it's very interesting if you like kind of big concepts and political intrigue.
That's pretty cool. I'll definitely take a read and get it from our local library to see what it's about. I know that they also have a series on Apple TV that they're in an adaptation of this novel. So I wonder if you'll provide a review of the show eventually and see how it contrasts to
I
what
may
you've been
take a look
watching.
at it.
Yeah.
It's I find Asimov's work is a little dry for me, but perhaps the show makes it a little. I really wanted to say moister, but let's not say that. We'll say.
Is that a word?
Moister, probably. Anyway,
Okay.
the point is, I recommend it, especially if you're definitely into spacefaring sci-fi. It's very very interesting, very. I keep wanting to say foundational. I'm trying to say literally anything.
Anything else?
Anything else innovative for its
Innovative.
time.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Okay. So why don't I can talk about my next one and going along the lines of I don't have a book, but I do have a show, and I know that Michael and I are both viewing it at the same time. It's White Lotus season 3. I've been a huge fan of the series since the beginning and really enjoyed last season. So this new season is set in Thailand with a bunch of zany characters and intersecting plot lines, and it's in its early episode. So the next episode to show up will be episode 3. And so far, I'm loving it. What do you think? I know that Michael, you're new to the White Lotus family.
Yeah, I've been a fan for about a week and a half or so. But yeah, honestly, very interesting. We got to watch some episodes from season 1 and season 3. And to me, what I noticed a bit of a sharp increase in quality in the writing and the dialogue. At least from the pilot. To be fair, I watched the pilot of season 1, and I've watched, I believe, 2 episodes of season 3.
Yeah, and we haven't dove into season 2 yet, but we're gonna get into that. And I think what's cool is that you can kind of watch it asynchronously as well.
But consistently across both seasons, the kind of the intrigue is there. A little bit less so in season 1. It seems to be kind of more of a slow burn starting out, just kind of feeling out the relationships between characters. Season 3, I think they've really hit their stride after season 2, and they found the formula, and they like get right into the intrigue, get right into the
Mystery and
mystery
lore.
of what's going on with all of these weird rich people at this wellness
And the
resort.
staff as well. It's
Yeah,
so
and the
interesting.
staff.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
fascinating show. Music. Have you been listening to any good music lately?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say right now I'm leaning into what some will know as recession pop. You know, during the indie sleaze phase of the early 2010s, which is like, oh my god, I'm still young, but like, wow, early 2010s. So loving Lady Gaga, and I'm looking at What I Wrote, which is, its own thing. Lady Gaga, Kesha recently hit my playlist on Spotify, and I was like, wow, I actually really like this. And I did before, so it's no shock. But Lady Gaga is working on her new album and recently dropped Abracadabra, which has hit the pop sensation like right off the charts. So really loving recession pop, which I know is kind of like a tough topic, because recession's like, oof, what's going on here? But I think the music, it's super creative, and I'm excited to hear more. A lot of great pop artists with Chapel Rowan, Charlie XCX, Billie Eilish, Jade from Little Mix. It's, really great art, and I'm loving it so far. So it's really great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Honestly, I've been running into kind of I've been following sort of a similar vein, where I've been kind of rediscovering music that I was aware of in my childhood in the past, but didn't really.
Sorry, I was asking if you wanted water.
I'm good. I never need water.
Okay.
Photosynthesize.
Cool. It's night though,
in,
but all right.
Ooh.
It's nighttime.
I get energy from the planets aligning. I hope there's
so.
no clouds tonight.
Looking pretty cloudy.
No, but yeah, I've been rediscovering music that I was aware of in my childhood, but that I wasn't necessarily a fan of back then. Some of these include the Florence and the Machine song.
I've always loved Florence and the Machine.
Shake It Out. Is it Shake It Out? Is it
Shake It Off?
Is it Shake It Off?
Shake It Out.
I think
actually,
it
might be Shake It Out.
So Shake It Out. No copyright.
No.
Unless that was really that good. No, but it's that song. I've been listening to that song on repeat. Another one that I honestly I didn't really know that I liked, but slowly has been growing on me is Miguel.
He's always been one of my favorite artists.
Yeah.
Always. I've always been a fan.
I remember the first time when I was I was listening to it was like a remix by Tame Impala of one of his songs, Waves, and I thought it was really cool. And but I didn't really listen to a lot of his other music until more recently, and then I realized, oh, I know those songs. I know Skywalker. I know
Sure Thing.
Sure Thing. Yeah, everyone. I feel like a lot of people know Sure Thing.
Sure Thing is just it's like amazing.
But those are from like 2012, and I feel like I was probably aware of them to some extent through my teenage years and college years and whatnot. But yeah, it's all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this is just really good.
Yeah.
This is just awesome. Just pumping it. Also, huge right now, Kendrick Lamar.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh!
What a massive
good.
year for him. It's huge, making huge gains as a popular artist. He was already quite popular before him, but it's simply a just rocket ship straight up as far as exposure to mainstream audiences and popularity.
Absolutely. And I think too, what's cool about Kendrick Lamar, and he recently performed at the Super Bowl halftime show, is the shift in, I guess what you can say is like considered pop in popular music, not just pop as a genre, but popular music, and how it's shifted from rock to hip hop and like rap, because initially a lot of what you were hearing, what was considered to be mainstream music was a lot of rock, a lot of instrumental, and now it's really shifted to be that rap and hip hop music is the dominant popular music. And I think I find that to be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. A good metric to use is I think at least is the Super Bowl halftime show, but not in the way that you think. Because Super Bowl halftime shows, I think, are generally about 10 to 15 years behind the cultural zeitgeist of what's popular music. For example, I remember early on watching the Super Bowl as a child. They were playing
Guns N' Roses.
I don't think
we weren't alive for that.
I don't think I'm old enough to have seen the Guns N' Roses one. But they were playing a lot of rock bands starting out. It was rock bands, and then it kind of shifted into like, okay, we have Coldplay, but we also have Beyonce and
also
Bruno
like
Mars.
Black Eyed Peas and like Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, and then it kind of shifted
Shakira,
from there into like some more hip hop where it's like they'll have a rapper on as well doing.
Eminem. We had like the whole West Coast rap situation that occurred.
I think that was a big turning point, the West Coast rap. But once again, all those guys have been popular for about 25, 30 years.
I think maybe the commercialism of it, essentially, like the music business
the commercialism
part.
I guess the commercialization and kind of the mainstream television appeal, I guess, catches up by about 25 years.
Beyonce's always been that girl, and I'm gonna say that 10 toes down. Anyways.
And now it's like, now most recently you have Kendrick Lamar, and he's been at least relatively popular in the hip hop scene for
a long time,
about 15 years. And so that's where I get my metric of Super Bowl, whatever artist in the Super Bowl, it's been usually about 10 to 15 years since since they were like a rookie in the field, let's say. Additionally to a lot of Kendrick Lamar's discography, I've been trying to kind of run through it chronologically, But of course I have my songs that I go back to from the recent albums and some of his big ones like Damn and Good Kid, Mad City.
Poetic Justice, also great song. Really loved that song.
I'll have to take a look at that one.
Yeah, that one I really loved.
Or take a listen, rather.
Yeah, take a listen. It's Drake and Kendrick.
Yeah. And one other genre I've been falling back into a little bit is kind of neo-psychedelic desert rock, kind of. So you think Queens of the Stone Age, you think...
Would Empire and the Sun qualify? Or are they not that rocky?
Yeah, they're not they're not that, they don't have quite that dry sound. They're a little bit more pop. I think if you're old, Caius or Kios, I've never run into a Caius or Kios fan in real life, and so I don't know exactly how the band's name is pronounced. It's a research faux pas on my part. But the one band that I've been listening to a lot recently is All Them Witches. It's a very cool band. They put a lot into their songs. If you look them up on YouTube and see some of their live in studio performances or some of their live in concert performances, very tight band, very cool sound, very unique, and they've remained pretty consistently popular and pretty consistently good for the past 10 or so years that they've been on the scene. So yeah, it's a cool band to check out if you're kind of more into like stoner psychedelic, like Southwest desert rock type of music.
Yep, and speaking of bands and music news, Alabama Shakes recently reunited and are going on a tour. So really excited about that. I would love to see them in concert. They're I want to say bluesy folk band that came about mid 2010s, and so been a huge fan from the beginning. And I know that the lead singer Brittany Howard went on her own way to do some solo projects, which were really successful, and so they're back and really excited to hear what they're going to put out now that they've reunited, and hopefully going to see them soon.
Very cool. I'm not a personal I personally don't have that much knowledge about Alabama Shakes, but seems like something that I could certainly get into.
Yeah, it's really good. I believe their hit studio album, initial into the stratosphere that really shocked them was Color and Sound. That album was really good with Don't Want to Fight No More, Future People, I believe. I don't know if Future People is on that album, but they have really great songs. Really great songs.
Fascinating stuff. Yeah, and so final segment of this show, what we're trying to do is kind of maybe a personal topic that either of us want to discuss. We have about let's say try to keep it under an hour 15. Let's say we have about 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
So do you have anything that you wanted to mention? Because otherwise I'm going to talk a little bit about app stores.
I don't. I'm a pretty positive. I'm not saying positive. I don't have anything. I think that I've made peace with everything that has occurred.
Ever? Everything that's occurred?
No,
ever?
I would say...
Oh, you know what?
Trigger me.
Trigger you how?
Give me something I mentioned. It's impossible. I'm not a
You're
complainer.
untriggerable.
Guys, I really
You're
can't. I'm not someone who complains.
You never get
really
mad.
I don't.
It's kind of hard trying to think of stuff off the top of your head. Like, what's something I crashed out over?
Everything.
Something. I know for me, it's been app updates.
Yeah.
Constant app updates. Oh, man.
Why don't we let him get into it? Go ahead. I'll pass mine on to you.
I realize I've been a little bit far from the microphone. That's okay. I'll perk up the volume in post. But honestly, I don't know if it's just because I have an older phone now, or that's just how the companies operate. But the sheer amount of app updates, both on my computer and on my phone, it's just a thing that consistently drives me nuts every time. Because it'll be now it used to be at least on let's say like Windows operating systems, it would give you a warning, right? It would give you like a warning like, oh, we're gonna update in 2 days. You can, if you'd like, you can reschedule it around. Nowadays, I don't even think I get the warning anymore. I think it's just like, hey, it's gonna like shut down. It's gonna shut down in about an hour. We maybe gave you a warning about a week ago, and you can't reschedule it, and you're just gonna shut down now. And so you have things like that shut down your computer in the middle of your work, or you have phone updates, which honestly, especially on an older phone like mine, even worse, because it just the more that gets added to the apps, the slower they run. The more that my phone heats up in my hand and shoots whatever ionic rays that come out of its operating systems flow straight into my hand, and overall, it just makes it a very much more difficult experience for using the device. You have anything like that?
No.
It doesn't have to be something unpleasant. If you have something pleasant you want to talk
pleasant.
about.
I'd say that, like, be open to life and opportunities that occur. And that's I think that's like the imparting wisdom I have for today. And, there are so many stressful things that we're cutting this piece because I'm rambling and it makes no sense. So, no, I don't. But go ahead, Michael.
We can talk about how the cats butchered my foot in the next episode. Because that's still a little bit fresh and raw in my mind.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think that's not
a great
a bad
way to close.
Yeah, not a bad way to close.
So thank you everyone for listening, and tune in next week when we upload this. I'm just kidding. When we
you won't know, except I might have already said the date earlier in it, so you don't.
That's fine. We'll see.
That might let you know how late we actually upload this. But.
No expectations. But tune in next week, and maybe we'll have a special guest. We plan to eventually. So yeah.
Eventually, we want to start having guests, get some other opinions on career growth and on just
life in general.
Just being alive. Regular people, not weirdos. That's not guaranteed. No weirdos, not guaranteed. But yeah, either way, we'll have some of our sources. We'll have them. If you're watching this on YouTube, we will have them in the description. And if you want to check out some of the things that we said, if you have an issue with any of our opinions or with any of our fact checking skills, feel free to comment. Get us some interaction, and we may or may not fix it.
Sounds good. All right, thank you everyone. See you next week. Bye.
Bye everybody.